When people ask me what my favourite TV show is, I say Only Fools and Horses. And then they say, no, not your favourite comedy show of all time. What's your favourite TV show of any genre? And I say Only Fools and Horses. And then they say, no, really. I say, yeah, Only Fools and Horses. And they say, no, really. And I say, yeah, Only Fools and Horses. They say, no, really. I say, yeah, Only Fools and Horses. And they say, oh, no, really. Anyway, I love Only Fools and Horses. Enough to cover it for the first series of the That's Why They Were Quality podcast. And it's still ongoing, by the way, that series. We'll return to it. And you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean. Give us a download, give us a listen, check us out. Anyway, after already spending 6 episodes on Only Fools and Horses, which are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Podbean, give us a download, give us a listen, you can imagine, after spending already this amount of time on Only Fools and Horses, and still more episodes to come as well, you can imagine it's been hard to narrow down my list of greatest Only Fools and Horses moments to just 11. But I think I've managed it, so here we go. Here are my top 11 Only Fools and Horses moments. Number 11. Rodney grabs the cigarettes. I love this moment so much. In this scene, you can cut the tension with a knife, or one of Dell's razors. And after being held hostage all night, that Sha'ado falls asleep, leaving his gun on the table. To which perhaps the least brave character on the show, Rodney, slowly edges forwards towards the gun, trying not to make a sound while being warded off by everyone as he gets closer and closer, and everyone braces themselves as Rodney reaches his hand out and goes past the gun and grabs the packet of cigarettes next to it. What a scene. It absolutely destroys the room, absolutely destroys. Just another example of how smoking kills. Number 10. A girl. I think this might be the only Fools and Horses moment that someone corpses and it's left in the show. And I can see why they corpsed, as this scene was so funny. When Rodney is about to go on a date with a woman who isn't his wife, Dell Boy wants Uncle Albert to act shocked. If I told my family I was going to go on a date, they'd be shocked, but for a different reason. But Dell wants to make Rodney feel bad. Rodney comes in and Dell Boy tries to get Rodney to say he's going out on a date with another girl. And Uncle Albert keeps missing his cue. First time Uncle Albert misses his cue, it's funny. Then he does it again, and you can see Dell Boy trying not to laugh. You can see him trying to hold it in. Then when Rodney finally says that he's going on a date with another girl that isn't his wife, Uncle Albert doesn't say anything as he misses his cue and Dell hits him, and then he reacts late and I was on the floor, and this time not because of booze. Absolutely incredible. Just one of the best scenes in Only Fools and Horses. Number 9, because that's how many fingers she had. Watching this was like watching a boxer throwing an incredible knockout punch, and then you think, there's no way he can top it, maybe he could just see out the fight, and then while his opponent is still reacting to the first one, he hits the opponent again with an even better shot. Dell and Rodney and Uncle Albert are talking about love, and Uncle Albert tells a story of a German girl who is missing a finger who Uncle Albert fell in love with during the war. Uncle Albert tells this moving story of how he asked her to marry him and she said no. That's it, just said no. Proper cold, just said no. I mean, she might not have knew the English for, I just don't see you in that way. But anyway, she said no. And Uncle Albert says whenever he hears the word 9 in a German war film, he always thinks of her. Then Uncle Albert pauses to let his melancholy story set in. And Rodney breaks the silence with the line, "Why? Because that's how many fingers she had." And the audience erupts. What a joke. And most other writers would go, job done. But no, this is John Sullivan. this is Only Fools and Horses, and they're gonna top it, as Uncle Albert walks off and says, I think she loved me in her own way. She never used to charge me as much as the other lads. The audience explodes again, as Uncle Albert changes the whole context of the story, as it turns out that the woman was a prostitute after all. So great, so great. Number 8. Batman and Robin. As a kid, I loved Batman and Robin, and I still do. And as well as my old gran and my old granddad and my old ma, one of the main things that got me into this show was seeing Dell and Rodney dressed up as Batman and Robin. This is a funny sight by itself, but seeing them running through the streets as Batman and Robin, knowing the context that it's in, makes it even better. There's just not much more to say, just an incredible scene, incredible moment, you've got to watch it. Number 7. Dell goes through the riot. Who doesn't love Del Boy? What a geezer. And this scene shows that not just the main characters love Del Boy, but pretty much everyone on the estate loves Del Boy. As the riot kicks off for a second night in a row in Nelson Mandela Estate, Del Boy has to drive through it to bring Damien and Raquel home. But instead of turning around, Del Boy decides to stop and beep his horn. To which a policeman says, "Hold up, it's Del Boy." And both sides part to allow him to go through. And you see, Manchester City, that's how you do a guard of honour, that's how you do it. Anyway, this is an incredible scene, as you see both sides have been buying stuff from Del Boy. You see the ski equipment that Del has been selling is being used as riot gear. And Wild West music plays as everyone gives Del respect, and Del passes through. And then when he gets through to the other side of the riot, the scene is made even better when Del Boy beeps his horn and the rioting resumes. Number 6. Who Stole the Microwave? Of the cast in Only Fools and Horses, you could argue the actor who's done the best is Jim Broadbent. And you can see why this actor is so successful, as he plays the role of the villainous Slater so well. In order to save Rodney and Grandad, Del Boy has to do the one thing he doesn't want to do more than anything else. Del has to grass. It goes against everything Del stands for. It'd be like me cheering for Manchester City. And the significance of this moment is sold with the fact Slater is willing to give Del immunity for doing this. And he's also willing to let Rodney and Grandad go for doing this. Del Boy, he hammers it home just by making sure he's got the immunity. So this is established within the audience's mind. Then a frustrated Slater says for the third time of asking, "I'm going to ask you who stole the microwaves." To which Del Boy looks back at Rodney and Grandad with a look of defeat, and then turns back to Slater and holds up the signed immunity form and says, "I did." What a great way to end the episode, and another great example of how you should never underestimate Del Boy, because if you do, Del Boy will always come out on top. It's great, absolutely great. Number 5. She Wanted to Go With Me. Now I love Cheers, it's a great sitcom. But this scene for me is one of the reasons this show isn't just a great sitcom, but it's the best sitcom. Watch how Cheers delivers this joke.
Italy's an awfully darn romantic place. I almost went there myself on my honeymoon, you know. Had the plane reservations and the hotel reservations, everything.
What stopped you now?
Oh, Vera, you know, she insisted on coming.
Now watch how Only Fools and Horses tells this joke. Trigger is telling Alan and Mike about a former girlfriend. Even Trigger gets more action than me. 5 years. Anyway, meanwhile, Dell is in the background on the phone, trying to figure out where Bronco got the satellite he sold him. Trigger tells the story of how he and his girlfriend would drive past the hotel, and his girlfriend said, "Hey, fancy spending a weekend there?" And you know, they did. And Trigger says it was a nice weekend, but she never wanted to see him again. Alan says maybe they better leave it. You know, maybe it's too personal of a story. Then behind them, Dell pauses his phone call and steps in and says, "Trigger, what happened?" To which Trigger says, "I later found out, through friends, she wanted to go with me." Now look how much Only Fools and Horses make out of that same joke. Look how much bigger of a laugh they get out of that same joke. It's just incredible. It just shows you how good the writing Only Fools and Horses is, and how good the acting performances are of Only Fools and Horses. How good the direction is of Only Fools and Horses. It's just incredible, absolutely incredible. And what makes this even better is, unlike Cheers, this isn't just a joke, just to put in there just to make people laugh. But it also drives the story, as this is where Dell gets the idea of booking a fancy hotel for Rodney and Cassandra. It's great, absolutely great, just brilliant writing, brilliant performance, brilliant directing, brilliant casting, brilliant, all of it, excellent. Number 4. If he's a boy, they're going to call him Rodney. One of the greatest running jokes in comedy is how Trigger keeps calling Rodney Dave. It's such a good running joke that's produced several incredible moments, but my favourite has to be where Trigger asks Rodney what Dell is going to name his baby. Trigger does this so he and Mike can win a bet on what the baby's name will be and then split the winnings. While telling Mike what Rodney says, he said if it's a girl, they're thinking of calling her Sigourney after Sigourney Weaver. And if it's a boy, they're thinking of calling him Rodney after Dave. Genius, genius! Number 3. Dell falls through the bar. There have been many questions that have eluded mankind and womankind and transkind and all kinds throughout time. Is there life beyond this planet? Did the FBI do in JFK? And how did Dell pull off this fall through the bar? For me, this defiance of physics ranks up there right with Michael Jackson's Lean from Smooth Criminal or the Flare Flop. I mean, just how does David Jason hold his pose so perfectly, fighting all the human instincts to break his fall? And how does he not get any of his drink spilt on him? How does he do it? It's unbelievable, unbelievable. In this scene, Del Boy is trying to appear cool while staring at a woman who he thinks wants a bit of him, and all while trying to give advice to Trigger. Then he goes to lean back on the bar, like he's been doing throughout the entire scene. And then he delivers the iconic line, "Play it nice and cool, son, play it nice and cool," and doesn't notice that the part of the bar that he'd been leaning on has been folded up and topples over, all while holding his pose and holding his drink in his hand. Trigger, who is facing the other way, facing the girl, then turns around to look for Dell and does a full 360-degree turn searching for Dell but can't find him. Then a dishevelled Dell stands up and says to Trigger, "You're cramping me style, you're cramping me style." Dell falls over and Trigger pulls a face. That is all this scene is. However, it's also so much more than that. This has to be one of the most divisive moments in British comedy history. Some see it as a simplistic, basic bit of physical comedy that has been rated much higher than more deserving comedy moments. However, others can see it for how great it is, for how brilliant all of the actors and the writing were in order to make this so great. Number 2. Trigger's Broom. This moment is so quality that it spawned an expression that is now part of the British lexicon. When someone refers to something that is claimed to be the same, although it's had several of its parts replaced, people say it's like Trigger's broom. For example, this car is like Trigger's broom with all of its new parts over the years. Or this watch it is like, Trigger's broom with all of its new gears. Or the Undertaker is like Trigger's broom, with all of his hip replacements and all that. What can you say about this scene? It starts off with the quality line by Trigger, as Trigger says, 20 years, Dave, it's a long time. And Rodney says, well, yeah, it's 2 decades. And Trigger says, well, I wouldn't go that far, but it's a long time. Then when Trigger talks about all the parts being replaced, Sid says, "How can it be the same bloody broom then?" To which Trigger says, "Here's a picture of it. How much more proof do you need?" Not only is this an amazing scene, but it's a great example of the mathematical technique known as trigonometry. Number 1.6. Yeah, see, I didn't say anything about decimal points, did I? Yeah. Number 1.6. Jolly Boys outing, the bus blowing up. Now, this is my favourite episode of Only Fools and Horses. I love it for multiple reasons. The camaraderie we see in all the characters, the speech on the pier, the fact that Chaz and Dave wrote a specialised version of Margate for this episode, the fact that I met Boise where this episode was filmed and we talked about the episode, and then saw Chaz and Dave as well in the same place, the same day. Just incredible episode, and it's hard to pick one moment from this episode that's my favourite. But it has to be where everyone is at the halfway house, on the way home. Denzel is getting ready to drive off as the original driver Harry appears to be too drunk to drive. Dell assures Harry that he won't tell his governor about what happened to him. Harry says he doesn't know how he got so drunk, he just had a glass of lemonade. Rodney is on the phone to Cassandra, defending Dell, saying it's not his fault he got arrested earlier in the episode. Dell and everyone are on the bus, and they see smoke coming from the car radio. The car radio, of course, that we're introduced to in the first scene of the episode where Dell is trying to sell them. Then, as Rodney is saying to Cassandra, it's unfair to assume everything that Dell touches goes wrong. He turns around to see the bus exploding. The bus explodes, and so does the audience. Rodney says to Cassandra, "Our bus has just blown up," and the audience is laughing so loud it's hard to even hear Rodney say those lines. Then we get an incredible visual of Dell and all the other passengers standing there watching the bus burn, and Dell says to Harry one of my favourite lines of all time, "Don't worry, Harry, I won't tell your governor about this." Absolutely incredible. This just unbelievable. Number 1.3. Dell and Rodney become rich. This has to be one of the best feel-good moments of TV history. That was ultimately undone a few years later when they brought the series back to some, diminishing returns. This episode was very much like the Return of the Jedi of Only Fools and Horses, and the 3 episodes in the 2000s were the prequel trilogy. And the Red Nose Day special was the fucking Star Wars Christmas special. All of the Trotters, especially Dell, have wanted to become rich. This was his goal that drove most of what he did in the series. Now, in the previous episode, we probably saw one of the saddest moments of the show, as Cassandra suffers a miscarriage. So at this point in the series, the Trotters could really do with some luck. And that luck came in the way of a pocket watch that they had for years. The pocket watch turns out to be an antique timepiece that sells for $6 million. And we get the incredible moment where the starting bid is revealed, to which Del Boy faints. And then when they enter the room and we find out it's at $4 million, Rodney faints. Absolutely great bit of comic acting by them. And then we also get the incredible moment, the incredible slow clap, when they walk into the Nag's head and everyone gives them a slow clap. And by the way, if I ever break my dry spell, this is the kind of response that I want. Number 1.2. Dell's speech to Rodney. David Jason and Nicholas Lyndhurst are such great actors. They can make you laugh and brighten your day, then they can make you cry and make you sad enough to turn off in private browser and just make you weep. Just after Grandad dies, Dell and Rodney host a wake at the flat, and they get into an argument as Rodney doesn't think that Dell is taking Grandad's death seriously. And Rodney, being the young and immature person that he is, says something really stupid, as most young and immature people do, like, Liverpool, they can't overturn a 3-0 scoreline, and a 3-0 defeat to Barcelona. Oh, yeah, what happened? Yeah. Anyway, Rodney says to Dell, How could you get over it so easily? Then Dell lets out one of the best speeches I've ever heard, and the audience stops laughing as they're drawn into this incredible monologue where Dell explains why he is the happy-go-lucky way he is, why he can't show sadness. And as he does this, Rodney realises how stupid he was to say what he said. And like us, he's let into a side of Dell Boy that we very rarely see. Then you hear Rodney mutter, "I'm sorry," trying to hold back tears. Dell Boy grabs Grandad's chair, and then the next scene we see the happy-go-lucky Dell Boy that he was talking about in the monologue, going to the pub and doing what he said in his speech, saying to the barmaid, "Have one for yourself, love," even though we know what kind of emotional torment Dell Boy is feeling inside. What a great scene. Number 1. That ain't the hand I dealt you. It is rare for a television moment to make you literally stand up and applaud, especially if that moment doesn't feature Divock Origi. However, this moment makes me cheer. If I'm in a bad mood, it makes me happy. If I'm feeling low, it gives me confidence. It makes me go, yeah, yes, Lewis, you can do it. You will get people to like and subscribe to the Geeks Nation channel on YouTube, or listen and download the That's Why They Were Quality podcast on Spotify, or swipe right and actually reply to a message on Tinder. Yes, Lewis, you can do it. Anyway, in this episode, we see Dell Boy and Boise have a game of poker, as Dell Boy is trying to end his losing streak. And I can relate to being on a streak that, you don't want to be on. 5 years. At the end of this episode, we see the poker game between Dell, Trigger and Boise. For Boise, gambling, it might just be a hobby. For Trigger, gambling, it might just be a social activity. But for Dell Boy, gambling is a way of life. Ever since his old man walked out on him when he was 16, he had to provide for Rodney and Grandad, with pretty much no education. Dell had to gamble to survive. Every day he gambles to keep him and his family alive. Every deal that he makes, he has to gamble. He has to keep his poker face, or his whole house of cards could fall down at any moment. So the poker game gets down to Dell and Boise, and they decide to make it a no-limit game. And one of the things I learned studying screenwriting is that a 3-hour lecture is no fun hungover. But also I learned is that when you want to add drama to a scene, raise the stakes. And this episode is perhaps the most literal example of this, as Dell puts it all on the line. He raises the stakes very literally, as he says everything that he, Rodney and Grandad have. The laughter stops, and the audience is drawn into this battle. Again, the lighting is low. The tension is built up, as Boise, the upper-class rich snob who is used to winning all of his life, whether that be honestly or dishonestly, has managed to use his mastery of deception to cheat to win this duel, as he reveals he's got 4 kings, which trumps Dell Boy's 2 pair. As Boise is about to celebrate, he forgets that no matter how much money he's gambled, he'll never be able to bet more than the man who dares to risk it all. And he who dares wins, as Dell Boy delivers the iconic line, "I have a pair of aces and another pair of aces." And I'll be honest, I know fuck all about poker, but it seems like Dell's won, so I'm celebrating. And then we get the even more iconic lines, "I knew you were cheating. Oh yeah, how? Because that ain't the hand I dealt you." Boise's assumed superiority has led him to being inferior. When the game comes to more than a game of poker, it becomes a game of life and death. But also, by the way, people, gamble responsibly. I was going to say, great episode, it's great, but I don't want to glorify gambling. Don't risk everything you have in a game of poker. Just say, it's not. No, don't let it get to that point. Don't do it. Don't do it. Anyway, thank you for watching my top 11 Only Fools and Horses moments.